Smoke Screen Podcast is brought to you by Creative Designs and More. It's Creative Designs, the letter N, More. Check out Wanda at Creative Designs and More on Facebook, or you can also check her out on TikTok at C Wanda B. That's SEE Wanda B. The letter B, man. I'm gonna tell you, y'all see my lighters I have, man. She does a great job. Any kind of party favor you need, coming to your party to design it, just let Wanda handle it, and I bet you she'll make it right for you. I promise you, man. Knock on wood, man. I promise you, dog. I would not lie to you. You ain't never lied to you on Smoke Screen, man. Make sure you checking out Creative Designs and More, man. Wanda will set you straight. I promise you, we'll get you right, man. Make sure you checking her out. And that's for our sponsors for today's episode. All right, y'all. Welcome back. Welcome back. I told y'all we got a good episode today, man. I have Dr. Robert Dotson with me today. Dr. Dotson, how you doing today?
Doing well, Brandon. Thanks for asking. Hope you're doing well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Always. Well, Dr. Dotson, man. Before we get started, if you want to give a little introduction of yourself, I'm already going to do one in the intro. If you want to give you a little
Okay.
self a little introduction.
Well, I I'm an MD, a medical doctor. I was trained in the University of Tennessee system, undergraduate school in Knoxville, and then med school, internship, residency in Memphis, University of Tennessee there. And I'm an ophthalmologist in my previous life and did cataracts and LASIK and all that up in East Tennessee for 30 years. I had my own private practice there for a long time. And that's pretty much it.
Got you, Dr. Dotson. Real quick, I was talking to my wife. So, like, with the medical marijuana, do they get doctors from different fields to come in, and so they can prescribe it, or how does it work? Do they come contact? Do you just contact them to say you want to get start doing medical marijuana or start prescribing?
Well, it's not in Florida. Each state's a little bit different, but in Florida, to be a cannabis physician, you have to be an MD or a DO, osteopath or a regular allopathic MD. And the state has a little cannabis course, which mainly revolves around the paperwork and the rules that involve this field. So you have to take that. And then once you do that, any licensed physician in Florida could be a cannabis doctor. Now, the problem is that most people, if they have a practice, they don't have enough time to do it because the uh, the requirements for files and for maintaining those and the rules and regs are such it takes really a full-time staff to do nothing but that. So the company I work for, which is DocMJ, there's several companies like that in Florida. They have a full-time support center down in Tampa St. Pete area, and so they're able to maintain the computer records that are required and the state requirements, be sure the state requirements are met. So it's difficult for anybody that's just in another private practice, family practice, pediatrician, whatever, really to do this and be in compliance with state laws because of the time involved.
Do you see? Do y'all see a lot of like people coming into the state that's just trying to just give out licenses as far as like doctors and stuff that are just writing it off. Because I was looking doing some research today, and I saw where the Doc MJ the CEO Aaron Bloom he's actually making sure
Yeah.
that there's a company Vera Hill, and he's actually making sure that
Okay.
what they're doing coming into the state is legit because it looks like
Yeah.
they're being a broker in
Uh,
between the two.
down in the southern part of the state, apparently there are multiple people advertising and writing recommendations using doctors that are located out of state and doing telemed basically. Well, by law, that's illegal. Up till now, the state has done nothing about it. So those of us that are in Florida that are trying to play by the rules and everything, that's caused a lot of frustration and complaint from people that are trying to abide by the rules and be there for patients and stuff. So I haven't seen out of state operators up here around Tallahassee, but I know that there's several of these mills basically down in South Florida, and they have billboards and everything reportedly.
Oh man, I didn't know they was getting as bold as doing billboards.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
That's
All the
pretty.
way down into the Keys, apparently. That's the word. I haven't personally seen it, but at meetings we've had with legislators and stuff, that's what's been reported.
Yeah. But what got you into to the medical marijuana field?
Why did I get into it?
Yeah, what led you over?
Is it-
What led you into it?
Oh, okay. I long involved thing, but I really I moved out to Seattle in 2012. It was just impossible to continue a solo ophthalmology practice, and I went out there to kind of help my son. He was 32 at the time, a paramedic, and he had job related PTSD, and I was pretty ignorant about it. He was too, and didn't handle it very well. Anyway, he ended up taking his life, and that really motivated me to look more into the cannabis thing. And so I kind of got educated. I started working in clinics out there, and so for the past 10 years, that's what I've done both in Washington and Florida. I've continued to do some eye stuff on the side, but we moved here in 2018, and really now all I do is cannabis medicine.
Yeah, we were talking before, and you were talking about Mississippi. How is that going? That initiative out there in Mississippi going?
I think that they finally have a medical bill passed. I know it passed, and then I think the Supreme Court or somebody just overruled the voters and threw it out, but I think it's been reinstated. Now, the problem is I don't know that they have the infrastructure in place yet up there to provide products and have doctors up there that can do it. Georgia just finally is starting to roll out their medical, but it's very limited compared to Florida and most states.
Yeah,
So I don't know where they'll go. You got to be careful until that's established and that's up and running. You got to really be careful going through these states that are not cannabis friendly.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well, speaking on that, when you were young, what was the big gripe that you think that people had against marijuana?
uh, it just, I grew up in East Tennessee mostly, and it wasn't even on the radar. I had some friends when I was in college, a couple of them, usually artists, that did smoke occasionally, but it just wasn't a thing that was in the culture and around that much. And if you did run across it, it was dismissed by the elders as, damaging to your mentation and your health, and it's addictive, and the usual string of lies. And so I really was never around it or dealt with it until I got to Seattle and kind of got dropped in the middle of it. So, basically what I heard growing up was stuff like you find in the old movie Reefer Madness.
Oh man, I try to tell people about that movie as much as I can. That's a crazy movie,
I
and
need to watch it. Yeah, you can find it on YouTube and
yeah, it was on Netflix, I
yeah.
think, for a while. And to think that
Yeah.
I had did some research on that case, that was actually out of Tampa, where they got the idea for that case at. The man said that he had killed his wife or something like that because he was high. He had been smoking weed and then
It's
they
just
said he lied about it.
Yeah, it just, I mean, let me tell you, stoners are not out beating their wives or shooting cops or robbing banks, and they're not speeding and killing people.
Yeah,
You know, they may be driving at 5 miles an hour down the road, but they aren't hurting anybody. Uh, one of the problems during Vietnam, that's, I'm that era, but one of the big problems then was, see, the soldiers got over there and they discovered cannabis, and none of them wanted to fight. So that got to be a real issue with the powers that be. So that was kind of the instigation for the war on drugs between, under Nixon, and Biden was a big part of that, by the way, and he still is. He still wants to put 100,000 more cops on the street to lock people up.
yeah.
It's
I saw.
depressing.
Yeah, I know we were talking about it the last time I saw you, and I was looking up some stuff, and they said they were trying, like, he was getting ready to do an initiative, but I was like, man, I don't see that happening. He was getting ready to start the initiative, to go back, to go, because I guess
Yeah,
his
a real
constituents were saying
marker.
upset about it.
Yeah, yeah. Buddy and Harris, I mean, they made their careers locking people up. I mean, that's what they've done, and they're continuing it in spite of the rhetoric. Uh, as a tell, when Biden administration was coming in, they had all of their incoming staff people fill out questionnaires, and do you use cannabis, and you won't be um, nothing will happen to you if you're just honest with us and all that stuff. Now it's legal in DC, by the way. And so a lot of people confessed up, and so they were all thrown out of the White House as soon as they told her that they were using. So that's your cannabis friendly new administration.
No, about the Florida race, and we have the Agriculture and Consumer Service, the commissioner running for governor. How do you think Florida is with the governor, as far as the governor race with the medical marijuana? How do you think that's going to go?
I don't know. A good thing that DeSantis did was, we have access to the flower, the actual plant material, thanks to our present governor. Now he that that caused some real problems with him, apparently, with the main Republican Party, which really controls everything here, and they're still pretty much anti-cannabis. You're up against the liquor industry, big pharma, mainstream medicine still hates it, and the prison industrial complex. That's who you're up against. It is changing somewhat, and we're optimistic that reportedly some incoming Republican freshman legislators have recommendations. And if so, that's a good thing, because that will change the mix.
Yeah,
So we'll see. See.
yeah, I talked about it on my Florida News, digging in the ashtray, my series I do. I forgot his name, but there's a Republican young upper comer that's trying to get it pushed. Then also
Good.
the Speaker of the House too. He's trying to, I guess he was on an initiative to try to push it through too in the beginning, and now he's speaking. I guess they're looking to him to take over the Agriculture and Consumer Service spot once
Oh,
once again.
the most recent speaker.
Yeah, the one that's
Oh
there
man,
now.
I don't know if we want that or not.
I
I
forgot.
don't think I want that.
Yeah, I forgot his name.
He's anti-cannabis. He spent his whole term in there trying to undo everything.
See, I saw somewhere where they said he had voted, I guess, yes, on some website I was looking up. He voted yes to at least, I guess, tax it or at least get it. But I think it was only because the governor was with it too. He was trying to,
Yeah.
he was on his side with it. Just jumping in, but what are some of those meetings like? Because if you, those of y'all that listen to the Smoke Screen podcast, I appreciate you. Dr. Dotson is in the rooms with some of these meetings. What are those meetings like?
Well, uh, it's politics is an ugly business. I'm telling you, but because I work in Tallahassee, I got kind of dragged into some of these meetings with the lobbyists and some of the legislators, and they tried to put together educational events so they can meet with doctors that are doing this to try and convince them that we're doing it right, and it's not just a bunch of people trying to get high. I mean, there's real medical benefit to it. So, most of the people that I've spoken with that the lobbyists recruit are already fairly well on board. If they're Democrats, they're almost always supportive. Some of the Republicans, especially younger ones, are more tuned in than the older ones. Um, but there's a change going on, in ages
Mhm.
in legislator too. So, we're starting to get younger people in there, and so some of the old dead wood is is kind of drifting off, which is a good thing.
Yeah, Doctor.
Uh,
Like, how do you attack those meetings? How do you get ready and prepare yourself for those meetings? What type of information do you gather for those big meetings like that?
I just use my experience, and I've collected a bunch of books over the years, stuff, and I sometimes I'll go through and refresh my memory with some of the notes and stuff. But usually, I just talk about my own experience, and the legislators tend to be, and I always mention my son because that personal thing that kind of impacts people, and they can relate to that. So that's been a useful tool, and in fact, I think he would appreciate I'm doing that actually. But you know,
Yeah, what well, we both know the benefits of medical marijuana. If you can explain to the listeners some of the benefits getting your medical marijuana card.
okay. Well, the biggest benefit to getting an actual recommendation is legality, and it's just even in a states where this is medically legal on a state level, law enforcement can be a real issue, and especially if you're a person of color. I mean, it's just there's no way around it. And I've got some, just miserable stories that should never happen, but that having that makes you at least legal in the eyes of the law, so you can legally carry this stuff and use it and that kind of thing. Um, it's a so for legality is the number one reason I would do it. Number two is access to quality control, because buying it off the street can be cheaper maybe, but it's a risk. And in California, about 4 years ago, the state itself went out and did street buys
Mhm.
of cannabis, and then they analyzed it. And I mean, like 80% of it was covered in pesticides. So see, that's a bad thing. You don't want to be you don't want to be smoking or consuming that kind of stuff, you know. So with medical quality control, at least there's some oversight and regulation, so you can be fairly confident in the safety of the product and the labeling of it.
Yeah, because that's one thing. I mean, right here in Florida, we had what happened out in Gaston County with the fentanyl, and some of that
Yeah.
marijuana was laced. So do you see that that's going to push the government to maybe, all right, we might need to attack this? I mean, you can only give out so many sprays of Narcan. Is there other ways that we can attack it? Do you think this may start making them look at
I just, Brandon, in my old age, I've gotten to the point that I really think you ought to just legalize everything, control the quality, tax it as you need to, and get out of the business of trying to control everything and imprison everybody and ignore a lot of the social and cultural things that make people turn into addicts and stuff. I mean, that's really a product of a dysfunctional society, is what that is, and family structure that goes with it. But I just think legalize everything and control and tax it. Um, the thing in Gaston County, I don't know. I think some of that was cannabis with fentanyl, and that's the problem buying off the street. People are lacing this stuff with everything. The government is using paraquat again. I've heard that's a defoliant that they used back in the '60s, to kill crops. And that stuff's you don't want to be smoking that kind of stuff. I mean, it'll kill you. So. Uh, I don't know how you control that. I can tell you though that the war on drugs hasn't controlled it, and putting more police on the street won't control it, and locking more people up ain't gonna control it. So I don't know. And of course, the biggest drug pusher, as you know, on the planet is U.S. government agencies. I mean, that's the root out of it. That's why it never goes away. I'll probably get a knock on the door for saying that one, but it is what it is.
Now, that's why I like you, Dr. Dotson. You keep it real, man. That's why I like you, man. But Dr. Dotson, man, if you can explain the process about getting your card, what you go through. I've tried to express it enough as much as I can with it. But if you can explain the process of getting your card.
Well, it's convoluted, but basically what the state authorities have set up is qualifying conditions. So somebody like with that has PTSD or epilepsy or cancer or a terminal event, they're dying from some untreatable issue, they're eligible. And under each of those headings, you can make kind of exceptions. You can kind of make people fit within those categories. So it's very arbitrary, but there's kind of a set of boxes you have to be able to put a patient in to qualify them. And for the cannabis doctor to pass on that, the patient is supposed to come with with medical records supporting their diagnosis. So the cannabis doctor, him or herself, is not supposed to make the initial diagnosis. They're supposed to use records from another physician. So we try to get all those ahead of time, and for our company, you have to fill out a big history physical thing. You have to get your records, days ahead of seeing the doctor. And often today, they'll also do a screening with like a nurse practitioner or a nursing assistant of some kind online to be sure that that person qualifies. It's interesting, Brandon. It's part of the hysteria has been both here and on the West Coast. Well, this is all you're going to see is a bunch of drug seekers, stoners coming in to get their weed. That's always the backstory. Okay, 10 years. I've seen thousands of patients. I haven't seen that person. They people don't go to the cannabis doctor usually except as a last resort. It's when they've been failed by mainstream medicine as a kind of a last resort. They go to the cannabis doctor and they get better using a plant than their 30 medications they've been on.
Yeah,
It's wild. I
yeah,
would never have believed it, being a classically trained MD, but I have not seen anything, and I've seen some, cancer and ALS and MS and really bad stuff. I haven't seen anything it didn't make better, if nothing else but comfort of the patient. It's wild. So you could replace, I'm convinced, probably 95% of pharmaceutical uh, drugs with a plant. Well, see, that's a problem. It's, and who that's a problem for.
yeah.
A lot of
Yes,
people with
sir.
big money that make it up.
Yeah, the one thing I love is because like people who I would want anybody who has a idea that like you said that would just think people just going out there to get it, the drug seekers. I would like them to actually go in through to a doctor's appointment and then go into the actual dispensary because in the doctor's appointment, y'all actually take your time and say, listen, this is what you need to do, either sativa or indicas. Don't do too much
Right.
of this because it might set this off a little bit. And so it's you actually going to a doctor's appointment. It's not like you going to say, oh, somebody just writing you something. And that's really why I want to have you on, so people to get the knowledge of it. Because like one thing.
It's yeah, I have a lot of patients that have found out as kids that it makes their problem better. So they've been self-medicating all along, but at some point they begin to get nervous about the legality of that and access to the material and stuff. So those people, they know they don't need a doctor to tell them what makes them better. You know, what I try to do when I run into that is just help them understand why that makes them better and what they're dealing with. Because literally most of what I see when you talk to people, it's really trauma. It's really PTSD. And it's most of that is family stuff. I mean, yeah, we've got soldiers, a few of them, and I've got some we've created a whole new class of PTSD soldiers. And you see former cops and firemen and EMT and paramedic. A lot of them, nurses, a lot of them have PTSD from the job. But most of that trauma that gets people really starts early childhood stuff. You know, you got an alcoholic in the family, you got divorce, you got single parents, you got financial economic issues where you're starving to death and living under a bridge. I mean, everybody's got trauma, and that affects the physical. So what that trauma does is it dysregulates the autonomic nervous system, which is our CPU. That's the brain behind the brain that runs everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get dysfunctional immune function and inflammation and mood. So you get anxiety, depression, you get sleep issues. And so it's real common to, see panic attacks and IBS gut dysfunction, ulcerative colitis. Women get dysmenorrhea, migraines are common, all that kind of stuff. And it all starts with the trauma, which knocks that control offline. So the good news is, guess what regulates the autonomic nervous system? The cannabinoid system. So that's why everything gets better when you throw cannabinoids at people. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, I watched the video about all that. I was like, whoa.
It's wild. It's really an amazing plant, and that's why it's been medicine for thousands of years.
Yeah, I was watching. They were talking about in Asia. They used it in Asia in long time ago. They were using it for
Yeah,
different medicinal.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Dr. Dotson. If you want to talk about CBD, because that's everybody hears about THC and these things, but CBD and Delta 8, that's new. What's your knowledge on those?
Well, CBD does a lot. Now, these plants have about 150 roughly medically active compounds in them, and the biggest ones are CBD, and there's a bunch of variants of that, and THC. That's the high part. CBD is kind of well, I hate to say medical, but it's anti-inflammatory, and there's no high with it typically. So in a dispensary, usually the products have THC in them. That's the high part, and it's a form of it called Delta 9. And there's a thing out there called Delta 8 THC, and it's in all the CBD shops. You can buy it online still. And basically, it's a synthetic product of CBD. That's how they get around selling it, because it's made from CBD. And the CBD part of the plant, if there's no Delta 9 THC with it, is unregulated. So that's how they're getting around that. Now, a lot of states are waking up to the fact that Delta 8, it makes me high, for instance. Of course, I'm kind of a wuss on this stuff anyway, but it can be pretty strong. Now, the problem with CBD is it's unregulated. So you can buy it everywhere. You can buy it online, but there's no regulation. So probably half the stuff out there is bogus. So you got to be careful, with the quality control there. And there's no body that oversees that right now.
Yeah, I tried the Delta 8 one time, and yeah, like you said, I'm a wuss with it too sometimes. That that had me kind of out.
Yeah, I had trouble walking there after my Delta 8 gummy bear kicked in.
Yeah, I had like a little caramel little
yeah, yeah,
candy little piece, man.
yeah.
The Dr. Dotson, man, I appreciate you coming on, man. That was a good episode. Giving a lot of knowledge about the medical marijuana. Let the people know where they can go in and find out about Doc MJ or the resources they can look up.
Well, yes, I don't even have a card. Let me see if I've got a card here, so I can give you. Doc MJ is they're out of the Tampa St. Pete area, but it was started by a doctor who's still practicing. He's an internal medicine fellow and an internist in a hospital. You know, he's an internal medicine in a hospital. He's a hospitalist, and gosh, they've got 20 or 30 offices around the state, and probably 30, 40 doctors that work in those offices. So Doc MJ is they've got a toll-free number, and you can call them. Do you want that? Do you want that?
Yeah, if you want to just get on there, put it on there.
Okay, it's the toll-free number is 888. Can't read it, it's so small. 908 0143, I think. But I'm sure you can look it up online. Just go DocMJ, DOCMJ.com, and I think the site will come up.
Yeah.
And just find a clinic near you, and you can go make an appointment to see a certified doctor. Here in Tallahassee, we have 4 doctors right now that kind of cover 2 offices. And in this town, we have a family practice and 2 internal medicine people and an ophthalmologist. So around the state, you'll find anesthesiologists and family practice people and a pediatrician or 2 and emergency medicine people that as they get older, you know, they don't want to work as hard, so they end up drifting into these weird side paths.
Hey, Dr. Dotson, 2 questions. Man, I forgot. Oh, do you know anything about do you have any knowledge about like getting the license to actually grow the marijuana?
Uh, I don't. I think you have to have a special license, and it's probably super expensive, as in tens of thousands of dollars if you can get one. Most states limit people that can actually grow full cannabis, but in Florida, I know you can grow hemp, and I don't think it's that pricey to get a license for that.
No, it's not.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
And hemp has some THC in it, but it's mainly CBD variants is what's in it. They've deregulated hemp growth and production, and they had to deregulate CBD. Basically, that's why they did it.
yeah. You know, Dr. Dotson, you from East Tennessee. I was watching a documentary about moonshiners. You ever find some moonshiners out there?
I had a look up some videos that talk about Popcorn Sutton,
That's what I
Sutton.
watched. Yep, that's
Oh
what I
man,
watched this video.
he is the last of the real moonshiners. Basically, the feds hunted him to death, is what happened. And he finally took his life just to avoid them. But I had a patient when I was in Oak Ridge, and the guy he was a Vietnam vet and lived up in the hills. I mean, way beyond getting to, and that was his thing. And they brought me down some of that moonshine one time in a quart jar. You know, with like, oh my god, it was good. It was smooth. Now I'll tell you what, but it was about a zillion proof.
Y'all gotta watch those of y'all listening, man. I appreciate y'all. Y'all gotta watch Popcorn Sutton because he said
He's classic.
he
He's
said
classic, man.
one of the things he said I usually look at, but I usually judge mine by how much fights you'll get. And he was like, "Yep, this about four fights to the pint right here."
He was quite a character. He really was. It's kind of a sad thing. They basically the revenuers. I mean, they basically harassed him to the point he just killed himself to escape it all. You know, they took everything he had, bankrupted him, pursued him all over the hills. You know, so, but it's worth watching some of the videos with him.
Yeah,
So he's a typical hillbilly, old backwoods moonshiner.
yeah, I know he was saying the video I was watching it. I know he was just staring. You could see him staring off in space. He was like, "This is gonna be my last time up here, making the moonshine."
Oh yeah.
He just kept saying that, and everybody came up there with him. But yeah, he was talking about how they had messed with him all these years since like the
Oh,
70s,
absolutely.
94. They was messing with him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And the same people that still do that are the same people that pursue the cannabis stuff too. You know, it's a DEA and all that bunch.
yeah. Dr. Dotson, man, I appreciate you one more time for coming on. I appreciate y'all for checking us out.
It's an honor to talk to you, Brandon. If I
Awesome.
can help anyway, you just give me a call.
Yes, sir. Always. Yes, sir. I appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good rest of your week.